Sound, music, sustainability. Welcome to Sustain FM. Sound is one of our most powerful senses, but just one of our senses. Sight, touch, smell, and taste are powerful too, and even more powerful when they're combined with sound. Today, we talk with Melissa Ingaruca Moreno about her work with light, fungi, meditation, and sound. Melissa is an award-winning futurist and researcher in multi-species design based in Berlin, and our project Endarken integrates fungal bioluminescence and sonification of nature with glimpses of darker futures. This is a future of design, light, darkness for multi-species cohabitation with a focus on healing, and I'm excited to chat with Melissa about how all of these ideas and senses fit together. So welcome, Melissa. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Steve. And yeah, I'm really excited to have this conversation with you, which we many times have had in cafes. And yeah, so
exactly.
Yeah, wonderful to do it officially on record.
Officially, exactly, yes. So before we get into that kind of wonderful dark world about the senses, I wanted to ask you a little bit about your background. So in your bio, you're a futurist and you're a researcher. I'm curious, how did you end up in Berlin? Was it the work on future and research that brought you to Berlin, or something else? How did you end up here?
Mm-hmm. Yes, as you mentioned, my background, I think I shared that with you, was in sustainability science and especially sustainability transformations, right? And it was some years ago that I was doing that master in Sweden. But also, like when I was doing the thesis, I wanted to connect with on-the-ground experimental projects, and that basically brought me to Berlin at some point. I was interviewing some practitioners here, actually people working with multi-species architecture back then. And I think just my first 2 weeks in Berlin were like a good how would I say this? Just a good glimpse of what kind of culture Berlin has, and I was really attracted by that. I was really attracted by all this, I mean, which for me had been at that point a lot of abstract talk about transformations and embodiment and care, multi-species care. But back then, I just remember like having really this experience of what that looked like. And one of the places that I visited early on, like back then, was this place called Floating University, which you might know is an experimental site, where they are like on the ground experimental learning place of that we call nature cultures. Basically learning to interact and create a space with the species that inhabit there. Yeah, so I guess I would say it's Berlin was the kind of was offering me the kind of canvas to learn and just to activate my senses and reconnect with on the ground projects, and that has been my journey too for the past 5 years that I've been here. Yeah.
Okay, great. Interesting. Okay, yeah. As usual, when we talk, there's about a million different questions that I want to ask. So I'll try and keep it on track a little bit. So I want to read a brief description of your Endarken project. So this is from one of the project documents. It says, Endarken is an experiential journey into the unexplored territories of human imagination of darker futures for multi-species cohabitation. A world where darkness is embraced to heal from light pollution, to restore ecologies, and to reconnect with the vast darkness of the universe, which is, I think, an amazing description. And as I said, I've got about a million questions about that. But I guess to kick off, where did that idea come from? And can you give people a bit of an idea of what the experience was actually like for participants?
Okay, so 2 questions there, like where it came from. I was that's already 2 years ago. I had already set my mind and kind of like my journey on the path of multi-species design, and I wanted to have a first experiment, right? Like that was I knew what kind of reflections I wanted to bring to the project, but I wasn't sure like what was going to be, let's say, my topic. And there's so many urban challenges that I could have start with, like whether that's food or water, or like there's some urban heat and so many things. But I think, and this is also kind of my recipe on how to approach projects. I think that I was looking for a personal connection to it, and something that at the time would really like spark this creativity in me. And back then, I remember seeing, like, this is because I'm connected to a biolab here, a communal biolab and collective that work with fungi, fungi, I'm not sure how to pronounce it. And I remember seeing for the first time bioluminescent mushroom. Somebody else, it was not me, somebody else in that collective had been growing them, and actually I just went I was in a house and we made one room darker, and I saw that for the first time, and that was, I mean, now it sounds like something that is so, it's not so surprising anymore because I've been doing it so many times. But back then, it was really such a weird experience because we had to stay in the room for a while, and just the fact, just the experience of being in a dark room was even like it's so unfamiliar to me. And then eventually, like, I started to see the glowing mushroom, and it was such a beautiful thing that kind of stayed with me. And I think that just when I think of my first experience with bioluminescence, I think now I also connected to these reflections of how these experiences of awe, of some kind of maze, like this really kind of disrupts your setup. I don't know, like disrupts your thinking. And I think that experience lingered with me. But I didn't know, I mean, I back then I also didn't know how, bioluminescent mushroom, but how is this connected to what I want to do? And then I started to have conversations about light pollution. It was, and just because I met people that were working on projects about light pollution and just protecting the natural darkness in cities as a kind of global commons. And then that's how I match it, and it will make sense maybe in a bit, but basically that's this idea of not idea, but this setup of artificial light being everywhere in cities. It's so common to us, like we're not even able to imagine a different reality anymore. Like if you ask somebody what the nocturnal future of your city would be like in Utrecht or in Berlin, they probably change a few things here and there, but I don't think people would even question anymore the presence, the pervasive presence of light, of artificial light.
It's just everywhere, yeah.
It's everywhere. And I mean, if you have been living in cities, we've been brought up that way. But people that maybe were living in rural areas or agricultural sites and etc., they have a different experience of that. And when I was having these reflections, I also remember my early experience in childhood, and I think this is what ended up closing that kind of like that idea for me, because in my early years from 5 to maybe 12, I was traveling back and forth a lot to the rainforest area. So I'm from Lima, Peru. That's a city. And my grandpa used to live in the rainforest. So going back there every summer, staying for 1 month or 2 with my family. And I remember, which was already so in the back of my memory, I remember my first experiences of darkness in the rainforest. And it was also, even feeling so magical too, because this was, almost like a different reality back then. Being actually able to see the Milky Way, which was possible back then in the rainforest. And already having the darkness from 7 p.m. maybe all the way, we would sleep also like super early than in the city, but just being around talking, just not even exposed to screens or any blue light, which we also know how this is disrupting our circadian rhythms and etc. So I think I just I hold on, like I kind of like brought those memories back to me, but they were again reflecting this dualism between having that, like even in my memory, I was having that as a kid in the rainforest, but I was for sure not having that in the city, which is like Lima, and light pollution in Lima it's really bad. It's really bad, way worse than in Berlin and in some European cities, which are also less dense in population and in buildings. So that kind of explains too. But that dualism between having to go to natural areas or now protector areas to find that darkness, and then finding ourselves in a different situation. So that's what Endarken in a nutshell is about. Is about also disrupting that dualism, that because we have expelled darkness to the wilderness, and it's about bringing that back, and about bringing that back not only for us, because we also need this natural darkness, but for the well-being of other species, right? So, and then trying to imagine that, and bioluminescence in that sense, what is beautiful about it is that you need really dark conditions to be able to see bioluminescence. And so that's how I was able to connect the fungi to that story, because in a way it was an excuse to have them, let's say, in the room, to get people excited about being in a dark room.
Yeah, I mean, that's fascinating. So especially this idea about light and dark. And I wanted to ask you about this idea of, I think, darker futures, what was the phrase that you used in the project description. And I find that very interesting, because if I just use that phrase, darker future, most people would understand that to mean that dark means bad, a depressing future, an apocalyptic future. Darker future is something we want to avoid. But that's not what you mean by darker future. And I'm curious, are you consciously trying to reclaim that idea about what a darker future and a brighter future means?
Yes, and I remember having conversations about that with you, because I think you also mentioned that there's this word for talking about sound, like darker sounds or bright sounds, right? So it also made me think how our understanding of dark and bright, or dark and light, it takes different meanings across different contexts. But the one thing that I became aware after reflecting for some months about these topics is that somehow this is deeper than just a topic of light pollution and the perception of darkness in relation to urban lighting. And at some point, I found a lot of scholars and thinkers kind of bringing to attention that actually there's a really like a blind spot for darkness in Western thinking, right? So it's kind of, we have all the way from concepts or the enlightenment, right? We have made all these negative associations with darkness. So this dualism, right? So in the end, it like we can track all of it down to this dualism between light and darkness, and we always place light above darkness. With all the connotations that it brings. So light is associated to progress, to reason, to rational thinking, maybe even. And so enlightenment took a lot of those meanings culturally. And then you take it to the field of urban design, and it was also connected to that, the idea that urbanization was about the expansion of light, artificial light in this case, and then darkness was equaling undeveloped, or savage, or this kind of things. So because of that, and I mean and then I think this one, the next one is actually something that we talked about. It also goes all the way to astrophysics and cosmology, because again, we look at the universe through our lens, through our bias with darkness, and then perhaps this is why we have way more research on the brightest things of the universe, right? All the way from the stars or supernovas, and we know way less about dark matter or black holes, because simply, I mean, it can be because it's hard to research about these things, but it can also be because we're just not looking at that, right? And then I think that became like a bigger thing, which it hasn't been fully explored yet in Endarken, but when now I think about reconnecting to darkness, or kind of like flipping the coin to rewire the meaning that it has. Now I think I see it, across different scales and different realms. So cities, for sure, they are kind of like my anchor, but now I can say that it's also important to create different cultural imaginaries of what darkness could be in a relation to the cosmos, in a relation to all these other cultural elements. Yeah.
Okay, that's very interesting, and actually kind of a good segue as well, because you mentioned this idea of dark sounds and bright sounds. So on this podcast on Sustain FM, we're usually focused on sound and music and sustainability, and I'm fascinated by your work with light and vision and darkness, and also that connection to sound. So I'm curious, from your projects and from your research, what does sound bring? And I guess I mean, why was it important for you to include sound in the project? Because in that Endarken project, people were in the dark room. They saw the bioluminescent fungi. They could touch. They could actually even taste and eat some of the mushrooms. So why was it important for you to have a sound as a component of the experience?
Mm-hmm. So I think there are two levels of this answer. One which was directly connected to the scenarios and the visions that people had throughout many workshops, and how sound was coming in there in different moments and in different ways. And the other being like the importance of sound in general when we talk about futures, right?
Okay.
As a part of a bigger umbrella of bringing multisensorial experiences to futures. So in the first level, I remember the first connection that I kind of picked from these scenarios with sound was because we were doing part of the one workshop was about embodying the sensorial worlds of two species at night. So to have a walk in an area of Berlin, in Kreuzberg, and embody the sensorial worlds of bats and moths. Moths. I have a horrible pronunciation of it. So people, these participants, they will have to walk across this route and like which had different patches of darker areas and like super, commercial streets and etc. And they had to reflect on how their species would be experiencing that. And of course, with bats, because we were learning a bit about bats, we know that they use echolocation to move around, and but also combined with their sight. So it's not just echolocation, which I think there was this also kind of like idea out there that it's only echolocation, but actually no, like vision plays still a big role in combination with. And so when we had the walk and then we were reflecting, we're thinking a lot how echolocation was like such an important part of their navigation strategies, where maybe for us humans it was more based on sight, and then taking that reflection into the scenarios of our darker Berlin that came up again, because we were saying, okay, maybe can we learn or be inspired by this mechanism of echolocation? Can we humans learn also to use echolocation? Would it be possible to train ourselves to have that as a mechanism of moving around? And there were ideas like I can then going like in different aspects of that world building. Some participants were saying, oh, should we have like walls that talk to you, or that would give you cues to move, which would be, because we were talking about a city that relies way less in artificial light and light in general. So what else would be there to help us navigate? What sound would be a way to do it? So that's the first connection, like in that we were not able to do, because that's part of the narrative, but we also had this extra step where we were creating the experiences of that future, right? So for example, that idea didn't make it to the performance part because it was harder like to let's say bring to reality in a technical sense. But it's part of, it was part of that repertoire of ideas about that darker future. And then the other way, this has to do with one of the things that we were able to perform, the idea of this dark healing center. That's the performance that has the setting of a dark room set up with all the bioluminescent lanterns where people go. And the idea is that these dark healing centers are places where in this future, in this imagined future, people would go to heal from the light polluted world, to slow down, to deaccelerate, to get more in touch or more in comfort with darkness. And then meditation and all these layers of sounds were more like a therapeutic element to it. Whether that's in the form of voice, like there is actually the audio of a guided meditation, which I think we have some of that to show at the end. And but also the reflection of how vibration is connected to healing, which again, that hasn't been fully explored yet, but is something that I'm really curious about, because we hear how different sound frequencies are connected to different healing properties or alignment, or all these elements. That I would also love to now explore that angle. And then, of course, that element of sonification of nature, I was kind of just being curious about it, but I think I didn't fully talk about that until I met you. I think it was actually with you that I had the first conversations about how could we connect people to the invisible sounds of nature, right? Like the sounds of mushrooms, or of the sounds that we can't hear, the invisible sounds that are maybe on this infrasound realm. Because also
like light and black hole data, and we talked about some of that. Yeah.
Exactly, across again all the scales, right? And I think I made in my head that connection that all the invisible sound range of nature is also like darkness, or it's something that is ignored. And basically that's also why I thought it would be really nice to bring it again to our attention, to our awareness. And I think also it connects with that. I think in the end, the idea of darkness as a common thread is to explore the realms of the invisible, of the things that have been ignored. And it talks about, in the case of sound, that talks about invisible just the connections that are not that we don't pay attention to in the natural world as well. So that's the now sound has different dimensions in how to explore that in Endarken. And in general, and that's why I said there's this bigger layer, even when we talk about futures and imaginaries, which is also a super ocular centric field, right? And we've talked about that with you, how even the fact that we call foresight
and vision and lens, perspective, all those words. Yeah.
So in that way, it's the same thing. It's also kind of a resistance to that narrative to say how do we bring a smell, taste, sound into that space of futuring to actually create experiences, right? Not just text or narrative, but actual experiences that people can connect to with their bodies.
Great. So that's actually a great segue into a question I wanted to ask you. When this kind of balance between you mentioned text and narrative, and then experience. So one of the things that I'm interested in, that I ask everyone I interview, is this balance between explanation and aesthetic experience. So especially given your background as a scientist and as a researcher, where explanation is everything, right? Like writing papers, presenting at a conference, writing your dissertation. It's all about explanation. That's the whole point of what you're doing. But then with the performance and the experience, there's the magic and the mystery of the aesthetic experience that people are actually embodying, where I think in a lot of great performances, the ones that really move people, not everything is clear. There is some magic and there is some mystery there. So I'm curious how you see that balance in your work. How important is it for you that people understand what's happening in the moment, understand that, oh, now I'm hearing fungi, oh, now I'm hearing black holes, or oh, now I'm seeing the fungi. How important is it that they understand that part compared to enjoying and sinking and embodying and being part of that, losing themselves in the performance.
Mhm. I think that even just the fact that we are still seeing those two, like the explanation versus experience, I think it speaks of this. I don't know if like maybe even the question is framed in a way reflecting this dualism of mind and body, right? Because
Right.
I think that's where we're coming from, and perhaps that's our tension because we have been in academia, for like a part of our journey, whether that's because of the master or PhD or whatever it was, and then we also have our artistic, art designerly world where it's so intuitive to just connect through our senses and to more effective connections and not be there like with a to-do list of how we're going to do it. We just go and kind of like flow with the moment. And where science, everything is more methodic and step by step, and it has to make sense. You have to start with a very well defined boundary, object or concept, and you have to keep your distance, and like a lot of these things. So they're almost two cultures, but the fact that they're two cultures is kind of like going back again to this mind-body dualism. And again, that's the dominant worldview of the Western world, right? Like this chain of dualisms. So I think for me, it's a question of how to bridge that. And I think even from within research, there are possibilities to do that with certain methods where you are basically claiming that you are making science through embodied knowledge, right? And I'm sorry, there's just a lot of kids playing in the street that I want them to be gone. They're super loud and they're distracting.
Yeah, so that's another interesting thing about sound. It kind of, is a little bit out of our control sometimes.
Yeah. Because I'm literally, okay, they're kind of going far. Okay. Yeah. And so, what I was saying is that like in terms of methods and like now speaking maybe from the more formal side of things, in terms of methods, my middle ground was to officially say I'm using these methods, like I'm using research through design, using embodied knowledge creation, using experiences, my own like auto-ethnography and other forms of ethnography to observe what's happening with experience of my participants, etc. So that was one way to approach it and to kind of like create a bridge. And then to the other question, I think you said like how I mean, what's the difference maybe between explaining things to people and actually have them experience it? I mean, sometimes I have started workshops kind of coming with this reflection of, yes, the modern city is this triumph of light over darkness, and kind of explaining the history of how urbanization has pushed darkness to the wilderness and all these nice reflections, and that has resonated in terms of like kind of starting a conversation. But I think it doesn't go as far, like much farther than that, than the reflection in the moment. I doubt that that's going to change much in like people's imaginaries. Maybe it would, or like their own how they shape their experiences of nocturnal life. Where in the other case, when the kind of the encounter they had with this topic was through the performance, right? They going into the dark room, or they playing with the wood logs and mushrooms under the red light, because all of it. So also just to explain a bit, in the performances of Endarken, there are different settings of also the color of light, because it's not. I mean, we for sure need darker environments, but we also reflected about this the spectrum of light, where the blue and white, they're gone from our scenarios basically, but we still have red light, for example, which is more friendly to wildlife and also for us. So there were many settings where they were living with that, like living with the under the red light, doing some nice activity there, or having being in the dark room, passing around the lanterns that looked like a star. So they were like even having this sense of like a communal encounter. And that, I have the feeling, I mean, also just from talking to the people afterwards and the people that I still meet here and there that were part of the initial project, that has had a more lingering effect on their, on how they would imagine, nocturnal future, or how they are shaping their nocturnal life. I mean, I can tell you, at least for myself, that I really love to kind of put my lanterns. I have some bioluminescent lanterns in my room before going to sleep, and it calms me down to just be like kind of with a dim light. And in the beginning, I was even doing it way more, like having them next to the tub where I was taking a shower at the end of the day, like not a shower, but just laying in the tub. So a lot of these things were becoming part of my experience, like my everyday life in a way. So I think the experience for sure has, if anything, like I could say, like it has a more like a lingering effect on people compared than when we engage like only through the rational facts and that abstract reflection. And I think that's true for a lot of things. Like in when we talk about sustainability, right? We can read the data. We can read the data, for example, of how this moth is affected by this kind of light, by this intensity. We know that they are, I mean, not everyone knows that, but maybe a lot of people knows that they have evolved to follow the cues of celestial bodies, and they are feeling, I'm not feeling, but they are confused, and they can just die even out of exhaustion, like going around the light bulbs. We know all of these things, but it's a different experience. Like when you ask somebody, okay, now try to imagine you were this species, or try to like connect from an empathy level. How would it feel like? And then you kind of like engage in a different way. Right. So just to put like a end to this reflection, I think that for me that it speaks about transformation needing to be an affective connection too, an embodied and affective connection, not just an abstract reflection.
Right. Wow, yeah, that's amazing. Okay, so I could easily ask you another million questions and keep talking for another few hours, but we need to start kind of wrapping up the our conversation piece here. But as you alluded to earlier, and as usual, we will end our episode with an excerpt of a live performance, and we have an excerpt of the performance that of Endarken that was done at the Nature of Cities Festival in Berlin in June, I believe it was, of this year. So it won't be the full experience. It'll only be one sense, just the sound part. But could you, maybe just set it up a little bit? What are people going to hear?
Yes, so that was a collaboration actually with you too. So they will hear the beautiful sounds that you prepare, and my voice that I'm a bit shy of. But basically, that was a combination of two performances of the bigger and Endarken scenarios or worlds. So for sure, I think that the meditation will be the one that kind of conveys a lot of this poetic reflection of our like healing our connections to darkness across this case. So I think that would be beautiful to have. So yes, that's a performance of a meditation where people are healing their connections with circadian rhythms, finding new ways to connect to each other in darker worlds, and also to the sounds of nocturnal ecologies and the sounds of the vast darkness of the universe. So that's across all these cases. This is how the narration goes in the meditation in the dark. And then if we have the chance to hear the second part, this is the performance of a forest lab. So a forest lab where people are collaborating with bioluminescent mushroom to create bioluminescent architectures. And the activity there was to do woodlock inoculation to basically prepare almost rotten wood with inserting some of that mycelium that will digest and decompose that wood and then create these bioluminescent architectures. So yeah, that had more of a fun kind of quality, the sound I remember. It was more,
Right.
yeah, like that, yeah.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you for that. And thanks for the great conversation. And as usual, in the show notes, we'll include links to some articles about Endarken, some references to some of the pieces that Melissa mentioned, also to the Floating University, so people can find out more information about that. So now let's have a listen to those live performances. And thanks very much for the time. I really enjoyed that chat and look forward to more coming up soon.
Thank you, Steve. Yes, I'm also looking forward to what we can do in the next performance. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
We are fungi. We transform Earth once, converting rocks into soils, paving the way for our common evolution. And now we are on the path to transform the very fabric of consciousness. You call us Marbella Kipa. We experience time as branches of a mycelial network. We are connected to you, to our common cosmic beginning, and to our multiverse futures. We sense you trapped in a narrow future pathway. Stories of hierarchical dualism, mind over body, self over others, humans over nature. Stories of fragmentation, of isolation. They dominate your imaginaries. And your cities are built upon those stories. You colonize the nights with artificial light. And like moths, fatally attracted to artificial light, you are equally lost in your light-polluted cities. Earth is turning into a glowing globe, and yet you have never felt more isolated in the universe. Artificial light has blinded you, and those stories of fragmentation keep your imagination caged. Let us decompose those broken imaginaries. Eat a piece of us. Digest us. Let our mycelial energy climb all over you. We will show you darker futures. Can you feel it? Do not rage against the dying of the light. Embrace our earthly and cosmic darkness. We now live in the era of Endarkenment. In Berlin, the right to darkness at night is an inalienable right of all species. And you turn to us, bioluminescent, fluorescent, healing mushrooms, to design thriving, darker, nocturnal landscapes. Our time to collaborate has come. These are the darker futures we created together. You are here, in the right time, in the right place. We are here, together in darkness, together to honor our healing process. Touch your eyes, feel them, and thank them for having endured years in the old, light-polluted world. If you feel them sore, massage the muscles around them with care. You are here to heal. Disrupted circadian rhythms, broken connections to nocturnal ecologies, cosmic isolationism. Take a deep breath, and with each breath, surrender to darkness. If your heart is accelerated, let it be. Breathe it away. If your body is trembling, let it be. Breathe it away. If your mind is busy with thoughts of productivity, let it be. Let them go. It was not so long ago you were caught in a fast-paced nocturnal life. It was not so long ago that capitalism was expanding into the nights and claiming the end of sleep. Remember, darkness is resistance. But your body might be caught up in the machinery of the old world. So be patient. Be compassionate with yourself. And remember, it's okay to slow down now. You are safe now. I give you this mantra to focus your attention. Use it if it helps you. I embrace darkness. I embrace darkness. I embrace darkness. Maybe in darkness we are meant to forget of our bodies, our boundaries, our separation. Maybe we are meant to remember how we are connected to everything else, to each other. Now, inhale and exhale, and slower this time. Inhale and exhale. Now this time, breathe loud to hear the sound of each other's breath. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Sense who is next to you, even if you don't see them. Hear their breath. You are not alone in darkness. Remember how you are connected to everything else. In darkness, by biodiversity has returned to Berlin. Can you hear it? The sounds of the night. Honor your coexistence with other Earth living beings. They are noisy and thriving again. You are not alone in darkness. Remember how you are connected to everything else, to this earthly bioluminescence. Sharpen your eyes and acknowledge who else is with us in the room. Patnellus stypticus mushrooms. Can you see them? I will pass the lanterns around and help me to pass them around the circle. As they follow in your hands, stay with them for some seconds. Stay with them to embrace their fungal bioluminescence. Don't force it. Let your eyes tune to it. Welcome it. A light that we can only see in darkness. A light that is helping us to coexist with darkness. Let this be a lesson for humanity, to embrace our darkness, our losses, our pain, to realize that we too can shine through, especially at their darkest times, and maybe only then. You are not alone in darkness. You are connected to everything else. Remember how your bodies, your destinies are bound to the stars. Surrender to cosmic light, as ancient humans did before you. Let starlight and moonlight help you navigate this world. And beyond the starlight, remember the vastness of cosmic darkness. Let it remind you of the miracle of life in this blue marble. Just to seeing the Earth from space reminded us of our place in the universe. Cosmic darkness has changed human perspective once again. Welcome the sounds of black holes. They are wombs of life, portals to multiverses. You see, darkness is not a place of death, but of life, of infinite life, of mystery and awe. Now extend your arms to the sky to reach the starlight. Inhale as you reach out. Exhale and let your arms fall. Inhale again to reach beyond light. Exhale and bring your hands down. Inhale, go deeper into the vast darkness of our universe. And hold it. Exhale. Inhale again, and this time extend your arms down to the soil to connect to this earthly bioluminescence. Exhale, bring your hands in your heart. Inhale as you reach down. Exhale, hands to your heart. One more time. Inhale, reach up with your hands. Exhale, hands to your heart. Inhale as you reach down. Exhale and hands to your heart. You are not alone in darkness. You were never meant to be alone in darkness. Remember how you are connected to everything else, to each other, to this earthly bioluminescence, to nocturnal ecologies, to the stars above, and to the darkness beyond. Go back to the world with a sense of humility and connection.
Okay, thanks for listening to Sustain. Hope to catch you again next time. Be sure to sign up for our email list on our website, sustain.fm. Follow our Instagram, also sustain.fm, and get more info on the radio show, in-person events in different cities, live streams, and more. All right, until next time, see you on the dance floor.